Café and Networking Podcast promotes entrepreneurs, business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, known as the King of Networking, podcasting, connecting people from my studio in Brazil. Today we talk with David Edwards, and he's joining us from Spokane, Washington in the United States. David Edwards is founder and CEO of HVASF, which helps people achieve their goals and become better selves. He is also author of the book, New You, Who Knew? An easy-to-digest and implement guide that builds confidence, esteem, and self-compassion in balance. So, David, what matters more, where you start the journey of life or your trajectory?
Well, Tom, since nobody gets to pick where they are in the trajectory, you simply are where you are. The only thing that matters is what your trajectory is. Because somebody who has started high on the bar but has no upward trajectory is going to be passed by somebody who starts low and is going up. So that's really the only thing that matters.
But always look up.
Absolutely.
Because as you say, in leadership, you have followers, and followers want to surpass your leadership.
They would, and wouldn't it be thrilling? I mean, starting way back, what was it, Dale Carnegie, who said, I want my people who I'm helping to be more successful than I am. Mm-hmm. That was his goal in his business. And I think that's a very laudable goal.
But as leaders in a company or an organization, in a family, that should be our goal.
Absolutely. Certainly it is. I mean, you're a father and a grandfather, I understand. And as a parent or a grandparent, we certainly want that for our children. I don't know why we wouldn't want that for anybody, frankly.
When corporate cultures today, we see challenge that sometimes.
There's no doubt. And in my book, New You, Who Knew? One of the core premise of that book is this idea that, especially in my career, I've seen this evolve, that modern companies have a certain amount of dysfunction. And I believe that they have moved away from the principles of success for human beings. And they've pursued the principles of success, if you will, for a machine, it's much more focused. It's much more selfish.
Right.
It's much more short-sighted. It's about me, my business. How do I get ahead? Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. I don't care what the consequences are to my employees who I might walk over on the way, or to the environment, to my community, to whatever other stakeholders you might have.
Right.
It's all about getting ahead. And so this dysfunction at a personal level can lead to frustration, to burnout, to discouragement. But at a corporate level, especially like a big corporation, at that scale, this dysfunction actually contributes meaningfully to destroying humanity and the environment and society and tearing at the very core. And so the book is written to individuals, but the influence could be at a grand scale, if we want to look at it that way. Because if you're a business owner or a manager, or most likely like an entrepreneur, you have the power to say, am I going to, without even thinking about it, fall into this kind of mechanical model that says, I got to get ahead no matter what else happens? Or do you establish what I call them, your mission, your vision, and your values? And are those really the guide to your organization? Because if you've done that thoughtfully, it's going to be a little broader than just making me rich. It's going to be about, what am I doing to contribute to the human condition? And it may be making great coffee. It may be making widgets. It may be in a service role or in healthcare or something like that. It doesn't matter, because we all have an opportunity, depending on what's interesting to us and what our skills are, to make a positive difference for humanity and, frankly, make a very good living at the same time.
I see that. We've seen the pandemic was the game changer of our time, right? So all the rules went out the door, everything's done, everything's changed. The largest of the big corporations that you mentioned that we see. Some of them don't exist anymore. Others are trying to preserve what they thought were their values. We have employees not being considered people, being employees, and they're jumping out, they're leaving. But I think, and maybe the essence of your book leads to that, is that what I also see that happens, people jump out of a corporate environment, start their own company, sort of remember where they were and why they don't want to be there anymore, but maybe forget that as they back to the trajectory, as they grow, and they want to grow and to become a big corporation. And sometimes they sort of cast these things off. If you're talking about the mission and the vision, values, sometimes they're cast off because all big corporations today started small.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true. And there's something that happens, and I don't know why, but I think that around $200 million, and when you reach that kind of scale, that kind of magnitude, we start to think of the numbers, and the numbers is all that matter. And we operate to meet the numbers, and especially if you're a public corporation, it's out there every quarter. You got to make that call. You got to say, how did we do? And it, instead of having a story, right? We feel like, well, it's just about the numbers, and so that starts to rise and become preeminent over everything else, which is foolish, right? Nobody ever did anything profound on a quarterly basis. And at the same time, everything is done on a quarterly basis, right?
I just want to challenge it. It's on a daily basis now. You're saying quarterly.
I love that.
No, because you're in Spokane. Right. I'm in Brazil. It's 9 a.m. here. It's 5 a.m. in Spokane, all right? But as I wake up at 5 a.m. my time, I already see and I'm able to read what happened to the stock market or the economy in Japan and China. Their day is done. I've had my breakfast. You haven't had your breakfast yet, but three-quarters of the world has already posted what they've done. So the KPIs are out there that everybody sees. So anybody waking up in New York right now, a little bit in Chicago, they may be shaking in their boots.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned KPIs. I think that's an interesting concept. All right. So these are key performance indicators. And I was a CFO for a lot of years, a couple of decades. And, I spent probably the first half of my career looking at KPIs that were all historical financial data, right? How did we do? You talk about looking at their days already done. I can see how they did. I can measure this. And yet the most interesting things in life and the things that lead to our success are not the things that have happened. It's the things that are happening, the things that are in the future. And so we talk about leading and lagging indicators. Now, my book doesn't really get into that, but it feeds into this concept. And I think Stephen R. Covey said this, my book is kind of like a precursor, I think, to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
So again, it's where we're going. It's where you're going, where collectively is this trajectory again.
Exactly. And as human beings, the meaning in our lives is tied to longer term goals. But the feedback that we get and that we need to help maintain that motivation is like you said, on a daily basis. It's in the short term.
We got it before breakfast. That comes before breakfast.
So I think one of the keys as we're looking at our lives, and it applies to our business as well, because this is how I look at the world. I'm a human being. Tom, you're a human being. All those listening are human beings. Right. But we've all, or most of us, are a part of a business as well of some kind.
That's true.
And that may be a school, or it could be an entrepreneur or a big business that we're a little piece of, right? But we're all a part of something bigger. And so really, if we think about an organization or a company, at its most basic level, it is a collection of human beings who have come together to accomplish some purpose. And it can be as broad as human beings are broad.
David, I need to thank you for coming to the end of our time. But to all those human beings who are listening, where can they find you?
They can find me at my website. That's the easiest way, and it's simply my name, www.davidredwards.com.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you again for being part and sharing your insight with us.
Thank you. It's been great, Tom.
And for our audience, again, more information about David Edwards, it's D-A-V-I-D, the last name Edwards, E-D-W-A-R-D-S. He's on his site, which is davidredwards.com, or you'll find him on LinkedIn. And again, the book is The New You Who Knew. The New You Who Knew. So Café Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information on their website, focusmi.com. Thanks for listening until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.